thank you for all coming out today in memory of those that passed on 9/11/2001. As we all know, we have victims who fell to that horror right here from East Brunswick, and they are memorialized on the statues that sit behind you right here in Monument Park. Also want to thank you for coming out on this rainy day. We had the decision to decide if we were going to go ahead with the rain or shine, and I think that in honor of our first responders, in honor of all of those individuals who have to come out in the rain or the snow or bad weather, I think the least that we could do is deal with inclement weather. So I thank you all for coming out here. I would like to point out several dignitaries who are here today. I'm going to ask in the interest of time that I just read who they are, and please just give us an applause at the end. We have here Assemblyman Sterling Stanley, who just walked in, our clerk Nancy Pinkin, Commissioner Charlie Kenny. We have our council members, Vice President Kevin McAvoy, Councilwoman Sharon Sullivan, Dana Zabicki, and Councilman Dinesh Bahal. We also have present with us today our bugler, John Marmion, and we have a host of first responders from members of our VFW, firefighters, East Brunswick Police Department, and other branches of first responders. Please give them all a round of applause. Since this is a vigil and a memorial, I'm going to ask everybody to turn on their lights in memories of not only the 8 that passed from our community, but the thousands that perished on 9/11. At this point, I'd like to call our council members to read the names of those from our township who perished on 9/11.
Thank you. Sue Nhan Ang, Susan Blair,
Paul W. Ianella, Widar Jang,
Alan David Kleinberg, Stuart Lewis, Suzanne Pissarro, Kenneth W. Van Auken.
I'd like to call our bugler, John Marmion, to play taps. And a moment of silence. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to call to the stage Andrew Perez, representing the Youth Council. The Youth Council in East Brunswick made over 200 snack packs to donate to Aldersgate in honor of 9/11 Day. This is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the memory of the lives lost on September 11th, and I'd like him to come up and speak a little bit about that project.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I recently participated in an Aldersgate snack pack making with some of my fellow volunteers at the East Brunswick Youth Council in honor of the 9/11 victims. Today, together, we made over 200 snack packs for those in need. By coming together to help our community, we keep the spirit and bravery of the 9/11 victims alive. We honor the victims, first responders, and citizens who sacrificed their lives to save those in need, as well as their courage and selflessness by doing what we can to help others in need, as the heroes who came before us once did. Even the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness, is a way to honor those we lost, a way to reclaim that spirit of unity that followed 9/11. Thank you very much.
When we talk about 9/11 and a little bit about the legacy that's created as we continue to look back on that fateful day, for those of us who lived through that, we think immediately to the things we remember from 9/11. But last year was the first year that our high school graduated students, of which none of them were alive when 9/11 took place. And so when we think about the legacy of this day, we need to think about what is the message, what is the measure of hope and courage and resiliency that could be applied to those who are living today who didn't live during 9/11. How is this day going to be something that has meaning for them? Because that's how you preserve a legacy. We won't be around forever. So for them to continue to recognize the importance and the attack on democracy that took place 21 years ago, we need to be able to be certain that our youth understand the meaning of what happened and try to put in perspective in the world in which they live why that lesson is so important. So each year now we have been asking our students to provide an essay to our office, and we review them all, and the topic was very specific. The individuals listed on the East Brunswick 9/11 Memorial demonstrated immeasurable courage, hope, and resiliency during an extremely difficult time. What message or lesson about courage, hope, and resiliency can your generation of youth gain from the tragic events that occurred on September 11th of 2001? How do you demonstrate courage, hope, and resiliency in your everyday life? Name a specific time when you especially needed to demonstrate courage, hope, and resiliency. We received about a dozen essays, and all of them were excellent, excellent. But we did have to pick our top three, and those three are here. The winners will be receiving a gift certificate from the township, and I'm asking them to come forward and read their essays to you today. The first winner, and I'm not sure if he's here, is Kenneth Chan.
When I read the prompt for this essay contest, I was a little dumbfounded. How could someone like me, a 16-year-old high school junior, who wasn't even born by the time of the attacks, begin to talk about them? How could I compare to the heroes that ran up the flights of stairs of burning skyscrapers, the people on the streets sheltering in fear, or those who witnessed the evil attacks on TV? Simply put, I will never be able to honor the lives lost, the lives sacrificed, the lives given up in response to that attack on our homeland. What I can do is keep their stories alive. The attacks on September 11, 2001 were an act of evil. That morning, 4 planes were hijacked by terrorists who aimed their weapons at our nation's heart. 2 crashed into the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center, 1 into the Pentagon, and 1 heroically into a Pennsylvania field. In total, almost 3,000 Americans lost their lives that morning. The 19 hijackers who struck at America tried to strike fear in us. They tried to strike against our freedoms, our liberties, our very way of life. But when they hit us, they were met with the best of us. Of the 3,000 Americans who died that morning, 403 were first responders, racing to the scene of towers of light to save their friends, neighbors, and even complete strangers. The terrorists showed us what evil was, but we met them with acts of kindness, compassion, and unity. In the days after the attacks, America swore a solemn oath: never forget. 21 years later, we still haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten the 3,000 families who are missing brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, mothers and fathers. We haven't forgotten the empty bed, the empty room, or the empty seat at the table. I may not have been born when it happened, but I am proud to carry on that legacy, never to forget. There are some of us, those who witnessed the events of that day, who believe that young people like me couldn't possibly know what it was like. They think that we couldn't possibly understand tragedy on such a scale. I admit, we weren't there to witness the crash, the fire, nor the carnage. But the evil that attacked us that day has yet to be vanquished. Day after day, children my age are the target of that same evil. But just as that same evil continues to threaten us, we, with the same spirit of goodness that routed the enemy on 9/11, fight back. This year alone, there have been 28 school shootings in America. 24 students have been killed, along with 3 teachers. An evil that once attacked America has evolved into an evil that turns us against each other. Disunity has prevailed, turning neighbors into enemies and family gatherings into shouting matches. But in this crisis of division and indecision, East Brunswick's youth have stepped up to take the initiative. East Brunswick High School students, through organizations such as Students Demand Action, hosted vigils, paid their respects, and advocated for change. They used their voices to decry the horrors at Sandy Hook, Parkland, and Uvalde. That same spirit of courage and unity that washed over America in the days after 9/11 has been passed down to us. And just as we acted decisively in the days after 9/11, young people are acting decisively in the face of this crisis. As an Asian American, the past few years have been challenging. We have been the target of racist attacks and hate crimes just because of our ethnicity. I was especially shocked when I saw videos of senior citizens being knocked down and physically assaulted on city streets. People who were my grandma's age, who looked like her and would have easily been her. Yet again, that fear and that terror struck. And yet again, America's youth took the initiative. They posted videos across social media, spreading awareness and helping police catch perpetrators. They posted tips and helpful information to keep people safe. Even though evil tried to tear us apart, these attacks brought us together, in the same way that the attacks on 9/11 united us. There may be a case that America's youth doesn't understand the magnitude of the events that happened on that fateful day. There may even be a case that those who were old enough to witness the attacks have forgotten them. The evidence that America has broken her oath to never forget is all over social media, the news, and the internet. America is more divided, more extreme, and more frustrated than any point in recent memory. Clearly, we have forgotten that spirit that united us in the days after 9/11. We have forgotten the very concept of unity. But there is hope in our youth. We have united behind common cause, and we have crusaded against the evils of fear and terror. We are taking an active role in reclaiming our country from their paralyzing grasp. When our safety, principles, and freedom are under siege, we come together to act. The unifying spirit of 9/11 hasn't left us. In fact, that spirit has become our drive, our motivator, and our ambition. We, the future of America's democratic experiment, are too the inheritors of the same bravery, courage, and resilience that America has for so long forgotten. In that sense, my generation will never forget that day. Thank you.
That was great, wasn't it? I have to say that whether it was the women's movement or civil rights or LGBTQ rights or voting rights, it has been youth that have led some of the most important social changes in this country. So I'm inspired by people like Kenneth and the youth in this township alone. I feel very strongly that we're in very good hands, and I want to congratulate him on that essay and all of those who were able to contribute, because it inspires me that our future is bright. You can clap. The next winner is Amanda Kaplan.
Hope and resilience are 2 words that mean a great deal. These 2 words can help advocate an optimistic vision to help improve not only a situation itself, but something more meaningful. I think my generation can help spread this message through social media. Yes, I know. Social media? Let's be honest. All people my age have gotten yelled at for being on TikTok for too long or checking on Instagram instead of doing our homework. What may seem like a distraction at one time may actually be my generation's greatest strength. The internet doesn't just contain extraneous material, but it contains valuable information to learn about our past in a way that other generations didn't get the opportunity to have. I'll get back to that in a minute. In EBHS, we learn all sorts of things in history class. The Cold War, current events, and so much more. The one thing that has stuck with me throughout all of these years was the events that occurred on September 11th. I'll be honest, history class is not the most exciting subject for me, because when I grow up, I know that I want to work in the medical field. Still, September 11th is something that just stuck with me. Many of us use the effects of it every day without realizing it. The bravery displayed by firefighters, doctors, and the community was astonishing. Instead of running from the buildings, firefighters ran into the fires. Instead of going home to sleep, doctors and nurses stayed at hospitals shift after shift. Although, one of the most important factors was that the community came together. They held each other up when some couldn't do it themselves. I feel as though this message of resilience through tough times applies in another sense to the East Brunswick community. When the coronavirus hit, everyone in the community was there for each other. The administrators of schools tried their best to engage students in education from home. Organizations such as Replenish did their best to help everyone have food on their tables. Doctors and nurses once again continued to stay shift after shift. This is where social media comes back to play. People my age used it to keep in touch with friends. It was an extremely hard time for everyone, but for little acts of kindness that my friends did for me, and I did in return, we made it through some callous times. Besides COVID, there were specific times in my life that I needed to be resilient. Remember when I said I wanted to go into the medical field when I grow up? Well, that's part of my own experiences within hospitals. This past year, I had my own medical-related struggles, which even left me out of school for a few months. That being said, the community around me helped me to persevere. The teachers, counselors, and nurses in EBHS would help me whenever I needed them. My friends would keep in contact with me and hang out with me when I couldn't see them. Throughout all of the distress within 9/11, it was a time that showed the United States and the world around us how we could come together during rough times. The word community was used countless times in this speech. It's because it's something that myself and others can look to in the face of hard times. Thank you for those who were there when I needed you. Now, I'm here for you.
Thank you. Good luck with this. And our final winner is Tanvi Walia.
Good evening, everyone. President Obama once said that even the smallest act of service, the simplest act of kindness, is a way to honor those we lost, a way to reclaim that spirit of unity that followed 9/11. Kindness not only makes people smile, but it makes the world a better place. On September 11, 2001, countless lives were lost due to the plane attacks on the New York Twin Towers and the Pentagon. There are many individuals, some of which are listed on the East Brunswick 9/11 Memorial, who demonstrated immeasurable courage, hope, and resiliency during this difficult time. The current generation of youth can gain a lesson from the tragic events that occurred on September 11, 2001, that having courage, hope, and resiliency will always guide one through a good pathway, and I demonstrate this in my everyday life whenever there's a problem causing stress or chaos. Always having courage, hope, and resiliency during tough times is something that the current generation of youth can gain from the heartbreaking events that took place on September 11, 2001. There are many people who contributed so much to the well-being of our society when there was so much danger and mayhem. These people demonstrated great bravery, which saved many lives. Moira Smith was the only female officer among 23 other NYPD cops who died on 9/11. She led countless injured people from the Twin Towers, but in the end died with so many other heroes in effort to rescue more. Benjamin Clark, another hero among the many brave civilians, was a chef and got credited with saving hundreds of lives. He made sure that everyone on the 96th floor safely exited the building. He then paused on the 78th floor to assist a woman in a wheelchair. He perished when the building collapsed. These people always thought about others first and wanted to make sure everyone else was safe before themselves. Although some of these actions may seem small, in real time they took a tremendous amount of bravery to do so in the moment. Among these two individuals, there are many more heroes that contributed to the safety of the public, and every one of them had courage, hope, and resiliency. Individuals had these key characteristics, which is why so many more lives were saved. All in all, the current generation of youth should realize that those three things are a key to being an asset in our society. Whenever there's a problem causing stress, I also demonstrate courage, hope, and resiliency. I try to be calm and find a way to resolve the situation in a good manner. I specifically needed to do this when I was in the Dutch Wonderland. I was 7 years old, and my little brother was 3 years old. I saw a small roller coaster and thought it would be fun to go on, so we got in line. Little did I know, we were actually in the wrong line and got into the seats of a big roller coaster instead. Somebody forgot to check my little brother's height because he would not be allowed to go on such an extreme roller coaster at such a minor age. Right when I realized what had happened, it was too late, and the ride was about to start. Instead of panicking, I calmed myself down and held on to my brother super tightly. After the ride ended, I was super relieved and elated that it was over. For me at 7 years old, this was a very scary and stressful situation. Although this shouldn't have happened, it did, due to the circumstances, making it very dangerous. Since I had hoped that everything would be alright, it ended up to be that way. I even had the courage to take on the situation without second thought. My resilience also played a big role because I quickly thought of a way to overcome this problem, which was to hold on to my brother really tightly. Therefore, if there's ever a stressful situation, I always try to have courage, hope, and resiliency. Due to the events that took place on September 11th, the current generation of youth can learn that having courage, hope, and resilience will always be the right thing to do. And I implement this in my everyday life whenever there's a problem causing stress or chaos. There are so many individuals that applied those three things during 9/11 and ended up helping so many people survive. When I was 7, I used those same three things, and that is what helped me get through that tough situation. Even though 9/11 was a bigger scenario than my experience, they both depict how those three factors are so important. Aristotle once said, "Courage is one of the first human qualities because it is the quality that guarantees the others." The people that have courage, hope, and resilience will always make a great difference in the world. Thank you.
In the interest of time and because of the weather, we're going to skip public remarks and move to our closing. I know that this is such a somber day, and while it's very sad that we lost close to a little over 3,000 people on 9/11, there are scores and scores of stories of individuals who didn't perish on 9/11 and just slipped losing life for the silliest of fates. And I could think of just 3 alone in my own experience. As a physician, I was actually in the hospital on 9/11. And one of my patients that I was doing a minor procedure on went to the hospital that same day with her husband, who was scheduled to be on a flight that was going out to California. And she was given the flight number before she left, so this way she could check on him and he could check on her when everything had finished. When her surgery was over and she looked at the flight number, it turned out to be one of the flights that went down and was crashed right into the towers. But it turns out that on his way to the airport, his boss told him that whatever company he was working for, that it was more important that he get to the company headquarters in San Francisco instead of LA, and switched flights on his way to the airport. And so fortunately, he didn't perish in the plane that did hit the towers. Now, it didn't have the greatest of endings. The couple, which was having a marriage that was failing to begin with, ultimately recognized at the end of this that life is short. They ended up divorcing, but the epilogue on that story is that they came back as she's continued to be a patient, and they remarried, had separate families, and went on and had wonderful lives. And it was that event that made them see that they were, that this maybe was a better outcome for them. My wife has a cousin who was working on 9/11 and was scheduled to be in the office on that day. And for whatever reason, he was late getting to work. And of course, as he got there, the buildings had already been attacked. No one was letting him in the building, but had it been a regular day, he would have easily already been on the 90th floor of the towers. He would not have made it through that event. He ultimately went on to change careers and didn't stay in finance, decided that he had a calling and went into medicine, ultimately became a radiologist, and now just recently, within the last couple of months, was asked to be a dean of medical school, where he will now go on to train a future of doctors and allied health professionals who will help save countless lives. And finally, we all heard last year the story from Dr. Father Mark Hanna, who was working on the 86th floor in an insurance industry, and through the heroic actions on his part was able to rescue somebody from a fire and carried on his shoulders another gentleman 86 floors down so that they both were able to exit in safety. That event was life-changing for him, and it ultimately allowed him to see a different path. And he went into the priesthood and is now a priest at St. Mary's Coptic Church, preaching to thousands of parishioners in our community and the surrounding community. So there are thousands of stories just like that, of individuals who have been given this gift of life, and it is a gift. So I think that there's a message that comes out of 9/11. It's that we need to look at each day as something precious and a gift, and figure out how we're going to use that gift to do something better in this world, to make some meaning of your life. Shakespeare once said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give that gift away. So I thank each and every one of you for coming out here today in the rain. I ask if you do have the time, please come over to the monuments and a moment of silence for those that were lost, and do all stay safe. Thank you.